Hello, my friends. My name is Darren Gerdes. I'm just a professor trying to provide context in the war in Ukraine. It is Thursday, October 31st, 2024. This is Halloween, and while our kids are out celebrating Halloween, grubbing candy from strangers, what's happening in Ukraine is something that looks more like this, and it's pretty terrible to see. Okay, we're going to start here and we're going to look at the numbers. It's the end of the month and it's 1,310 casualties day over day. I've been telling you for some time this is going to be the highest month. I think that, okay, so let's look at this first. So last month it was the highest casualties in Ukraine, highest Russian casualties, 1,271 on average times 30 days, 38,130. This month, just ballparking with about 13,000, it's going to be well north of 40. Now that's ballparking because there are some days that have been 14, 15, 16. Like it's been very hot in the war here. Just the number of casualties. Okay, 19 tanks off the battlefield, 17 armored fighting vehicles, 58 artillery systems, 121 vehicles and fuel tanks. That's a lot. Okay, Andrew Perpetua just finished yesterday's list, and he put this out about 10 hours ago, said he just finished this list. There's a lot on it first, and then it's a little bit better than 1-to-1, maybe 1.4-to-1, something like that. But then he also put this out, like, look at what this guy's got to do. How many videos he had to go through to determine what was going on, and how many he had broken down so far, how many had to go, right? And then so at 3 in the morning, he put this out of videos broken down, videos to go. I guess he went to sleep because I didn't see today's videos after that. So just wow, like. So I don't know what the numbers are for today, but that's what he has to go through. Okay, since 2022, Russians have launched over 25,000 missiles and Shahed drones into the people of Ukraine. Now, I want you to see this for a reason, because I'm trying to provide context and help you understand just what's happening. For context, the U.S. has only 14,000 McDonald's and yet has a land area 9 times. So 25. This is what 14,000 McDonald's looks like in the United States. Now, Ukraine is only the size of about the state of Texas. It's only about this. And yet, within this space, there's been 25,000, that size landmass, 25,000 of these. And so 14,000 McDonald's, 25,000 missiles and Shahed drones. Now, it gets even worse. Explosive contamination affects 128,000 square kilometers of land and 14,000 square kilometers of water in Ukraine, according to the Ministry of Defense. So what does 128,000 square kilometers of land look like? 128,000 square kilometers looks like it's a little bit larger than the state of Pennsylvania and Delaware that would be in the size of Texas. Does that make sense? So that's showing you just how jacked up what Russia has done to Ukraine, and it's just terrible. Okay, overnight, Russia continued its cruel attacks. This is our U.S. Ambassador, Bridget Brink. Overnight, Russia has continued cruel attacks on Ukraine, killing a young child, injuring 35 others in Kharkiv, as well as damaging civilian infrastructure in other parts of the country. Some of this was so bad, even on X, they were putting this behind a graphic content warning. Like, I'm not going to show this. If it's even like this on X, I can't show it on YouTube. Now, a couple other things. Satellite images revealed the aftermath of a strike on an ammo depot in Luhansk just a couple of days ago. So you can see that there was clearly a before and an after, and it's not looking good for that strike. Okay. Now, let's talk about the battlefield for a little bit. It's been kind of seesawing, but it's not been big ground won or loss. There's been high casualties and a slow attrition of ground. So here, Ukrainian forces recently regained positions near Pokrovsk. That's good. Russian forces recently advanced in Kursk Oblast, near Kreminna, Chasiv Yar, Pokrovsk, and Kurakove. Okay, and so this is what we're seeing here from the Institute for the Study of War. There's also a debate about this area where Selydov, the Ukrainian military, is contradicting earlier claims by Deep State Project about the capture of Selydov. Reports of the repulsion of Russian attacks and directing the city. It's It's teetering back and forth, but Ukrainians are claiming that they have gained more ground than lost in just a last day or two. The rate of Russian advance in Ukraine has increased in recent weeks, but remains slow and consistent with positional warfare rather than rapid mechanized maneuver. Like, they're not taking these large swaths of ground by, getting around their enemy and capturing and getting behind them and that sort of thing. It's just keep sending more meat into the grinder and just keep going forward. Don't come back, or we might have barrier troops that won't allow you back. And so that's what's actually transpiring on the ground. In the south, just for context, in the south, the Ukrainian Defense Forces are resisting a grouping of 200,000 Russian troops, according to the spokesperson for Southern Defense Forces. Around Pokrovsk alone, there is something like 60,000 Russian soldiers or more trying to capture Pokrovsk. So it's just the enormity of this scale is something to wrap your mind around. Commander-in-Chief Sirski spoke with the U.S. General Christopher Cavoli, the commander of U.S. forces in Europe. Russian forces are using their numbers in personnel and equipment to maintain high-intensity assaults along multiple fronts. In light of this, he emphasized the urgent need for bolstering military technical support to the armed forces. And now, understand, that means that they have lots of people, so they just keep pushing those people forward, and lots of them are being slaughtered in the process. It's a good thing to see the high numbers, but the high numbers reflect a intensity on the battlefield. Now, what we also know is that the Ukrainians have only gotten, Zelensky talked about this yesterday, 10% of that which was promised in 2024 from the U.S. Like, things are in the pipeline. They're coming through, but they're not there yet. And that's problematic. Meanwhile, Russian FSB abducted this Ukrainian from her mother's funeral in occupied Crimea, fabricated a treason charge over a donation in support of Ukraine. So she's in Crimea, goes to her mom's funeral. I'm not making this up. This is the actual article in Human Rights in Ukraine, the Kharkiv Human Rights Group. Here, Russia only admitted to holding this woman prisoner 3 months after she was seized by the Russian FSB officers in occupied Yalta during the funeral of her mother. After illegally holding the 34-year-old Ukrainian incommunicado from June to the beginning of October, they then produced a grotesque treason charge. Really? Wow. So that's what's actually taking place on the ground. Russia has created a 21st century gulag on occupied Ukrainian territories, according to the New York Times. This is Anton Gurashenko reporting what was in the Times. Brutal repression in Russian-controlled Luhansk, Donetsk, Zaporizhia, and Kherson regions has institutionalized Soviet-style tactics, with over 100 known detention sites where Ukrainian civilians are beaten or killed. At least 14,000 Ukrainian civilians are imprisoned on fabricated charges, facing arbitrary violence, forced disappearance, and more tea. This is a different tea than the other tea but I'm just trying to not get dinged again by YouTube. Because it's just utterly ridiculous. Okay, so Gurashenko is also talking about the live human hunts on Kherson civilians that are becoming a daily reality for the cities. Russian soldiers attack civilian vehicles with drones, and they then post these with, like, he says, note the music that they add to these videos. It's sickening. Like, they're posting this like for consumption of other Russians to, like, look, haha, this is what we're doing to Ukrainians. It's really just unbelievable. Now, 2 weeks ago, I put out this video, please help me stop the human safari. And I brought some of this to light and said, please contact journalists, please reach out to any media figures that you have, because there's only, like, in English speaking world, there's only a few dozen YouTubers really covering this, and some newspapers are doing it, but you don't see hardly any of this on TV. Well, here, this is a follow-up, because a number of you reached out to me and said, hey, I contacted the BBC, or I contacted The Guardian, or my local newspaper, or whatever, and I appreciate that so much. Kate from Kharkiv It's so important that the Russian human safari in Kherson is finally getting the attention in the press. Please help spread the word. And it is. This is a BBC article, came out 7 hours ago. Russian drones hunt civilians, evidence suggests. And when you go down into it, evidence of apparent drone attacks on civilians can be seen in numerous videos shared on Ukrainian and Russian social media, 6 of which were examined by the BBC Verify. In each video, we see through a remote operator's camera as they track the movements of pedestrian or motorists in civilian clothing, often dropping grenades, which is sometimes appear to seriously injure or kill their target. So your efforts are having some effect, and so you should be rightly praised for this. Okay, so that's all that I have for today about things going on the ground. I'm going to do another video about like international kind of news, and then we'll do the 3 big stories later on today. Darth Putin will close with, if Ukraine can keep destroying Russian vodka distilleries without escalating to nuclear war, Russia has no red lines at all. So this was the distillery hit just a few days ago, and thought that was pretty funny that, well, at any rate, thank you for your time. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the subscribes. Thank you for reaching out, those of you who did, and reached out to journalists about the human safari. I greatly appreciate it. And thank you, all of you, for being the kind of people that care about Ukraine.